what we can do, this isn't what I quite had in mind, is start going over examples. Okay, so I don't know why this is popping up because I hit restart. Okay, so as we look at this problem here, okay, we're saying that this flip-flop the lights. Okay, we can do that. Okay, here come the lights. Well, if we had one person can't see, there might be more than one. Okay, so even if this did not say work, how do we know that this is work here? Because it's labeled in joules, okay? And it says that it's pulling this wagon with 21,000 newtons. So if it's labeled in newtons, that is a what? That is a force, okay? So it's asking what the distance is. So to really help yourself out, what should you as individuals do next? Okay, write down our information, which we know how much work is being done. Okay, and what else do we know? Okay, and then it's finally asking, well, for how long did it pull that over a certain distance? As far as crops being harvested now, when I was your age and even younger, your average run-of-the-mill farmer probably hauled grain how? Not with semis, with tractors and wagons. It really didn't have. I suppose there were a few farmers that were large enough that you'd want to use a semi to haul it from, whether it's the field to the elevator in town or to the house or your farm to put it away for storage. But another thing that had changed, what about when the corn's being harvested? How might that have been different? You don't there's I've seen maybe two farmers in this entire area that do this with corn that nobody else does anymore as far as harvesting it. Say that again. You pick it on the ear. Does anyone know anybody who still picks corn? Right, because a lot of that is going to be harvested with the combine rather than putting it on the ear. So with that, that's another example how times have changed, and it used to be that tractors and wagons, that was the major way of taking crops from your field to your local elevator or coming home. So with this, what would the next thing we would do? What does the formula tell you to do? So work equals force times distance, so let's put these numbers in where they belong. So we've got the work is on one side, 190,000, okay, equals what's on your right side then? Okay, so 21,000 D. So to get the distance by itself, okay. So for how long was that force exerted doing work then for a distance? How many? Okay. Okay, so as we're doing this, how many of you run the grain cart in here? As far as take it, or is it grain cart or dump wagon? What's the proper term? Either one. How many of you run that and you're driving while the combine is going? Think back the first time you tried that. Was it a success? What's the problem? You say no, but what was the problem with that? Okay, it could be too close, but one of the things now this is how I think, or it's just an opinion as far as entering or exiting a ramp on the interstate, just like running that grain cart. It's a lot easier for you to match the speed of the combine if you're running that grain cart, because whoever's running the combine, they got to look to see what's coming into the head and anything else that could be rocks, could be anything like that going straight. There's a lot of things going on in a combine, so it's always going to be a lot easier for you to be aware of that. And in my opinion, where some of these interstates, I don't know if you want to call them clover leaves, does that make sense? So what I'm saying is if you're going on one interstate and you want to hop onto this one, where sometimes you have to do this loop and come around and go in that direction, to me it's a lot easier for the person who is either exiting or entering that. That doesn't make any sense because that'd be one and the same person. But if you're already on the interstate, I think it's easier for you to avoid whoever's trying to get off of that, because there's just so many things that are taking place. Now, with that, so what we see happening in this instance, you're just not moving it that far, okay? So we're going where the numbers lead us. So there could also be other types of examples, maybe something a little more practical, or I just want to try to do something that you can actually see, for instance. Maybe it could be something to this effect. Maybe this probably would have been a better example to start with. My apologies for that. We'll go 0. I don't know, we'll say 35 meters. Okay? So in this case, and I think we've talked about this before. Does anyone know what a ring shank nail or a pole barn nail is? Has anyone ever had to put a nail in that's got a whole bunch of rings on it? And when you put that nail in there, it's pretty much there to stay, because you really want to make sure that it's in there, because on this nail you have a whole bunch of these things that are pointing backwards. Now does that maybe look a little more familiar? Okay, so in other words, once you put that nail in, you really don't want to have to pull that out, because those little rings or barbs on there are going to prevent that from moving or shifting, and that's just the way they're designed. But in this case, again, if we see 770 joules, we know that is which variable then. That is the amount of work being done. Okay, so we've got 770. Okay, what is 0.35 meters then? That's how much distance you're moving, 0.35 meters. And notice it's asking how much force is needed. Well, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so to solve this, do what the problem tells you to do, which is take 770. What's going to be on our right-hand side then? 0.35. And then what else? Okay, the force exerted or needed over that distance. Nice gum back there. Well, you just... Okay, so how do we get the force by itself then? Okay, by what? By itself. Maybe you said that. I don't know. I didn't hear that. 0.35. So our force then is what? 2,200 newtons. Somewhere in that effect. Okay. Let's see how our other computer is coming. And it's still restarting. Okay, are we in your paper or your handout? Does it say anything about power? I know that's on the bottom of the paper. Okay, that is next. Okay. All right. So we're going to do an example of a power problem. Okay, and this question is based off of talking to some of your upperclassmen from last hour. A lot of you are the beans and maybe starting to combine corn now. Yes? No? Perhaps perhaps something to that effect. So as this corn goes into the bin, some of these fans that are on the outside that circulate the air to help dry that, probably running nonstop, okay, just to kind of circulate the air and dry that moisture down from numbers I heard was somewhere around 21%, okay, and probably want it down to, you can probably store it at that, but you probably want it down to what, 18 maybe? 18, 19%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but those increments you're going to want to do. Because what do you think happens to that corn? It's going to get hot if it goes in there with too much moisture, and then what does it do? Is salt does what? It's going to get sticky, and it's going to start to stink as well, because what's that going to do? It's going to start to get mold in there, and then it's going to be probably worthless then. Okay, so, or the amount is going to be going down. Okay, so as we look at this, what does your formula for power say? Okay, so this was your new formula, that power, whether you put a smile over top or a dashed line like this, okay, equals, you can say force times distance over time, or power equals work divided by time. Sound familiar? Yes? No? Okay. So, as we look at this problem, we want to write down what we know, which is this variable of 9,000 is what? So your work is 9,000. Okay, so notice, okay, so with that, sometimes we might try to be a little tricky, okay, because this time's not measured in minutes, it's measured in seconds instead. So we take 60 and add 20, that's where the 80 seconds come from. So what is the power rating? Okay. What's 112.5? Well, I thought I heard 720,000. Oh. Oh, okay. Could you repeat that again? 720? 112. Okay. And the W here is not for work. W is watts, and that's how you measure power. And just like what we mentioned, okay, you look at these ballast lights or light bulbs, they're not just measured in watts, but rather what? Are we going to read our next story problem? That must be our formula sheet. Okay. Well, what's that other paper? Can I see it? Do I want to see it? Why don't you put it in your pocket then, or something to that effect? Okay. All right. Okay. And we're still restarting here. So I've got issues with this computer, so we will stop there for today. Notice you have some vocab terms that you could be working on, so the rest of the time then is yours.